Greetings, I'm Dike Rostant. Welcome back to the TTT News. Indian Heritage Month is almost completed, but the National Council of Indian Culture still has offerings in store for you. We are going in depth with Richard Rampersad, the lead coordinator for the NCIC's Art and Design Exhibition, on one such of those. Welcome, Mr. Rampersad. How are you doing?
Thank you, Mr. Rostant. All is well. Thank you for having me.
It's really our pleasure, and especially on the day of Indian Arrival Day itself. It's 177 years?
Yes, that's right. So this year we celebrate 177 years since the arrival of the first batch of indentured East Indian immigrants to our shores.
And I'm looking at you and I'm looking behind you. Don't vex with me if I look at the images behind, and these are pieces of the exhibition that is on at this point in time. So without further ado, take me through the exhibition. Thank you.
Yes, so the works that you are seeing behind me is a part of the exhibition. It's from the artist Beverly Thomas, and it depicts the female figure on canvas. All right. So in this exhibition, which is entitled The Girimity's Journey, we have presented approximately 40 works of art for public consumption to look at, etc. And now in the curation of this exercise, this exhibition, I strategically thought about placement. So when guests come and they view this exhibition, they will see a progression from the indentures on Cane Field, nostalgic views of the Cane Field, village life. They would see views of life in the plantation. Then the exhibition continues with rituals and festivals. So it continues, artists would have depicted scenes of Huse, scenes of Ram Leela, Diwali, Pagwa, and a host of other festivals and rituals. It continues with a more modern day contemporary interpretation of the subject matter of the East Indian experience as well. So it's really an unraveling of the narrative in its entirety from start to end. And you know, the viewers, the guests are invited to immerse themselves in this as they peruse this exhibition space here.
And how long does the exhibition run till?
So the exhibition closes on the 6th of June. It would have started last Sunday. We formally opened, and the opening hours are from 2 p.m. to 7 p.m.
And of course, you know, we need to know the location of the exhibition.
Right. So the exhibition is at the exhibition hall inside of the dome, which we refer to the dome area of the NCIC. That's the Diwali Nagar site, just off the highway.
And one of the things that I like is the fact that you said, okay, well, you're very strategic and you look at how you can place these works of art in a thematic sort of way. What are some of the other things? Because yes, there are, we see portraits, but are there also other types of media that artists have decided, okay, well, this is how I'm going to articulate my art. This is how I'm going to communicate. Are there other mediums used?
Right. So within the exhibition space, inside the exhibition hall here, we have the two-dimensional works, which would comprise of drawings and paintings. Now, artists would have interpreted the theme, the Girimity's journey, or the journey of the indentures, through their particular aesthetic and their style, their specific use of medium, etc. What we saw is varying degrees of abstraction and representation in the work. Some artists would probe their narrative in a more literal sense, while some might delve into a more symbolic, abstracted type of format, right? So you had subject matter, like I would have elucidated before, that delves into figurative, involves the use of the human figure. You have landscape work, plantation life, village life, and you also have a lot of ritualistic scenes. One of the particular pieces that was interesting to me is one particular artist rendered a cremation scene. And I felt that that to be such an interesting concept because I personally have never seen that type of thing. What made it even more interesting is the fact that the persons who were taking part of the cremation in the cremation, rather, they were wearing face masks. So automatically, you know, this is a cremation that took place during a pandemic. etc. But separate and aside from the two-dimensional work, we also have featured three-dimensional works in the form of sculptures. An artist by the name of Kajal Madhu, who was very instrumental in this exhibition, I must say, she exhibited sculptures where she used the motif of Hindu gods and goddesses as her predominant subject matter. And her sculptures are some are literal and some are much more abstracted. Some might be just considered a whole assemblage of different things. And her works are very symbolic, and it's something, it adds a good dimension to the overall exhibition. So we have drawings, paintings, sculptures, as I would have said. We also engaged the kohar, and kohar is simply another name for potter. It's the Bhojpuri word for potter. And we know, well, for those who may not know, in 1898, there were two brothers who went by the name Gulcharan and Sicharan that came to Trinidad to work as indentured laborers. And after their indentureship, they reverted to that craft of pottery, which they would have practiced in India. So now what we have today is their descendants, fifth and sixth generation kohar or potters, continue in the art form. So we have work from these kohars or these potters here at the exhibition site. We have approximately 20 pieces of art from them. And the vessels would include stuff such as urns, goblets, diyas, kalsas, nagars, and different ritualistic vessels and vessels of purpose. So that is all part of the exhibition.
You're saying kohar and you're making me feel a little puhar because there's so many things that I'm learning from you, but I'm very grateful for the opportunity. And in terms of art imitating life, I'm really struck by that description you have of the funeral service that's going on with masks. And it also makes me want to ask, in terms of art imitating life and looking at the current lay of the land, you don't necessarily see many art galleries that are not situated in the north, in the west, certain areas, but centrally. So how important is it that the NCIC is providing, is facilitating this showcase, this platform for individuals who are a little further away than the north and northwest area of Trinidad and Tobago, or Trinidad specifically, to showcase their work?
Yes, so one of the objectives or the mandates of the NCIC Heritage Center is to produce and provide a space, a place, and a forum for young aspiring artists to show their work. It's also a forum to exhibit work outside of Port of Spain. And as you would have rightfully said, a lot of the galleries and exhibition spaces are centered in and around Port of Spain. So it's a whole ideology we're trying to dismantle and bring art into central Trinidad. And the NCIC Heritage Center rather, is doing just that. Because in central Trinidad, we have an immense amount of talent. The artists that are exhibiting here, not all of them are from Central. They're scattered throughout the country. But it's important that we have a space in Central Trinidad. And it's kind of, it declutters the traffic of art consumption only in the West. All right. So I am, it's very exciting and positive and promising, rather, when it is, in Central Trinidad, there can be a hub for creative endeavor. And this is exactly what we aim to do here.
And I think part of it too is just decolonizing the space or changing the way that we think, as opposed to say, okay, well, if I need to see this, I need to go to this place, as opposed to saying that there can be beauty, there can be artistry to be consumed in this area. Because I think sometimes when we think of places like Shogunas and environs, we're just thinking about, okay, well, this is where I get a nice deal. This is where I'm going to purchase this thing, as opposed to have the senses imbued with this level of beauty. Definitely. But in terms of engaging, we are going to take a short break and we continue the conversation. When we return, stay with us. Welcome back. We are speaking with Richard Rampersad, lead coordinator for the NCIC's Art and Design Exhibition. And one of the things that I wanted to ask you, Mr. Rampersad, is the way that you spoke about pottery, you spoke about canvas, but I think there were also some other things as well.
Right, so good, and I'm happy that you're asking this. So we wanted to celebrate, promote, and highlight some of the Indian folk art as well. Some of the forms of art making that has not gotten the level of attention that it should. Some of the forms of art making that we would kind of consider to be dying. One such example is something known as kite paper cutouts. Now, traditionally, when there is a Hindu event, such as a Hindu prayer service, which we would call a Ramayan or a Yagna, or even a Hindu wedding, you would see the ceiling of that space being adorned and decorated with these brightly colored paper that has cutouts of Hindu deities and different Hindu emblems and symbols. Now, this is a kite paper craft that came during the indentureship scheme, and unfortunately, like I said, it's not as common. So we wanted to kind of celebrate that because it's very, very beauty. I see it as suspended drawings from a scissors. This is how I conceptualize it, because it's suspended, it's hanging from the ceiling and that type of thing.
And the thing is,
That is another feature here.
you would go to an area, or you would go to stores where they have it pre-packaged, possibly a different material, and you're paying your money for it, as opposed to saying, okay, well, this is an art that has been handed down, and it finds a place and a space, because we know it and we understand it, you know. But saying, okay, well, the person still has the skill, or the person still has the talent to do it, is something a little different. So I'm really glad that you're doing that as well. But are there others?
Yes, and there's also a style of art known as rangoli. Rang comes from the word color, all right? And it's a form of art making whereby you color rice. Now, different materials can be used for this. At the NCIC here for this exhibition, we colored rice, regular rice with food coloring to execute the design. Other materials that may be used for this craft is chalk, where you do chalk drawings on the ground. At the end of it, it's color. So you can use colored chalk, you can use colored petals, and you can use colored powder or gulal or abir, as they say, that you use for pagwa. And you create decorative patterning comprising of like geometric designs and floral motifs, etc., on the floor. And it's a kind of welcoming gesture. It's a way you use to greet persons through the color and these different things. It also has other ritualistic symbolism with the cleansing of a space because of the intricacy of the design, etc., etc. So that is just another feature of art work that are currently on exhibition here. And we have a very large rangoli. It measures approximately 10 by 10 feet in dimension.
Yeah, that is a lot of rice.
Yeah, it is a lot of rice. And the rice goes back to the elements. It's usually discarded in running water, so the fishes and stuff can consume it, because it was stained with food coloring.
And one of the things about art is that art is open to interpretation. No, I set that context first, but then I still want to ask the question, what do you want someone who visits the exhibition to come away with?
I would say similar to my creative practice as an artist, where subjectivity and ambivalence are key in all art making. Perhaps the same, sometimes as artists, we can't always be prescriptive. So we're not saying that the artwork should mean this or it should resonate this a particular way with you. We're asking you to allow your imagination to run wide, to run free. And these things are relative based on the viewer's gaze, the viewer's experiences, the viewer's personal ideologies and belief systems, etc. So it's really about allowing you to allow that imagination to run free. Of course, you're confronted with a picture in front of you, and you allow your experiences and your intuition to determine that for you. Yeah.
And so it's running from May 21 to June 6. It's at NCIC. It's happening in Chaguanas. Getting information office at ncictt.com. I think I saw something else with regard to posters looking at early years of Indian cinema. Can you speak to that as well?
Right. So in addition to the visual art and design exhibition, we also have a poster display exhibition that features posters from the early years of Indian cinema. All right. We have, I would say, close over 50 posters. And, I am quite sure persons of a certain age could relate to some of these posters that they would have been familiar with. So that exhibition is also running simultaneously. It's at the same venue, same time, and it ends at the same date on the 6th of June.
And I'm very happy that we're able to speak about this as well, because I, for one, I remember at a point in time, Sunday was Sunday afternoon, rather.
Yes.
That was the time for Indian movies on TTT. So I'm also glad that we're able to be having this conversation on TTT at this point in time, where we live for local and we try to expose all assets or aspects of ourselves to ourselves.
Yes, that's correct. I remember that as well. The black and white images, the 3-hour-long films with the lengthy musical pieces in it. Yeah. So movie posters from some of those films would also have been featured here in this exhibition, the early years of East Indian cinema. Yeah.
Nice. Well, one of the questions I wanted to ask was, how did you go about sourcing artists? You say that the artists come from different areas, so it's not as though it's one specific locale. But how did you put out your call for artists? How did you decide, okay, well, these are the individuals or these are the items, the projects, the works of art that are making the cut? What was that process like for you?
When the executive team and myself would have conceptualized this show, immediately after that, we launched a call for works. That call for works was circulated extensively throughout our social media platforms, our NCIC website, and we also engage as much persons as we can within the art community, etc. So those were the modalities that we employed to get the word out. Now, coming out of that, artists would, take note on whether they have work that would respond to the theme of the exhibition, which is the Girmitia's journey, and they would submit accordingly. We would have had approximately 17 artists responding to the call and exhibiting work. Obviously, we would have filtered the pieces to make sure it flowed with the narrative and it worked appropriately with the space in which it's going to be exhibited, etc. And once all of that was ironed out, we now have a total of close to 40 works of art, fine art, at the show.
I know, Mr. Rampersad, you can't just leave my hanging like that, huh? In the sense that, okay, well, this exhibition finishes on the 6th of June. What next? Because when you leave somebody with a good taste in their mouth, they want to know, okay, well, what you're going to give me next. So what are some of the things that you have that you're working out, you have on the horizon?
Right. So before the exhibition closes on Saturday, the 4th of June, we will be having a Meet the Artist event, and persons can also meet the individual who was behind the mountain of the poster display and perhaps ask questions on that. So we're going to have a Meet the Artist event whereby the public would be invited to interrogate the artists about their work, their studio practice, their style, their methodology, their inspiration, etc. So this is something I'm excited about because it gives you a vista into what were the artist's conceptual concerns or interest in the conceptualizing of the work. So we have that happening on the 4th of June. That is from 3 to 6 p.m. at the NCIC. When this exhibition closes, that is not the end of it. We will be having a series of ongoing shows and information would be forthcoming. The NCIC Heritage Center is a very active section of the overall NCIC organization, and we have several events throughout the year. So during the year, we would have book launches, guest lectures on different, cultural, anthropological disciplines. We would have art exhibitions, photography exhibitions. We have had those in the past, artist talk, and different events around this nature. At the end of it, the NCIC is really an amalgam of many things, many different forms of creative expression, musical arts, performing arts, visual arts. Everything is really embodied in this space. So it's a hub for different types of creative expression.
And I think one of the things that is so important is the value of having individuals feeling as though they've been seen and represented. So even like my paws are raising when you're speaking about the meet the artist, because I can imagine someone having a conversation with the person behind the piece of art that you would have itemized in terms of like the cremation site, and wondering whether or not if it was something or someone close to them that inspired that work of art, whether or not the person was just looking at a way to keep people in mind, and whether or not that was a way of dealing with pain, or just looking and seeing whether if this is something that is happening. Because remember, there was a whole conversation that would have taken place to enable going back to having cremations or open air cremations. So I think it's really thought provoking, and I really want to thank you for the work that you are doing, that NCIC is doing, and on behalf of the entire TTT News team, this has been In Depth with me, Dike Rostant. Thank you so much for joining us.